Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Lines End Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Stone. We've got One Piece chapter 1099, titled Pacifist. Let's jump into it. I think this is a great and a classic One Piece chapter. It has all the markings of a classic One Piece chapter. Now, of course, as a community, we've kind of made consensus that Oda has been in his bag really since the end of Wano. And so this obviously doesn't surprise me. But, I mean, like I said, classic chapter. We have the right amount of tension. In the way of tension, you know, we get to see King Bakori and his interaction with Kuma, his reasoning for wanting to burn the southern part of the Sorbet Kingdom. I mean, for one, we know that they're not helping pay the tribute, which is really his biggest goal, right? And he even mentions that he got the idea of burning the Sorbet Kingdom from the incident at the Goa Kingdom, where the Goa Kingdom burns the outer part of the city. That's how Sabo ends up with the Revolutionary Army. And we know that Kuma was a part of that rescue effort. So obviously that plays double for him. One being because of the fact that Sorbet Kingdom is his home, but two, because he actually saw the effects of the devastation of the Goa Kingdom firsthand. So we get to see the weight of King Bakori and his interaction with Kuma, and then Kuma absolutely annihilating King Bakori and blowing the top part of the castle with an Urusisa shock. Going down in Sorbet Kingdom history as a one-man revolution where Kuma saves the people. And we get to see how the Gorosei play off of that, which it almost always seems that the Gorosei, I don't know how they relay their information. Do they have spies? Do they just wait for shit to happen in the newspaper? I don't know. We'll see. But we get to see that they're learning of this and they've taken concern. For what reason, I do not know. I have to imagine that the Sorbet Kingdom was paying a sizable tribute, because otherwise, I don't know why they would spend so much money on a kingdom that, as far as I can tell geographically, is in the boonies. So it's either that or they hate Kuma. And I know St. J. Garcia Siren, we know from Kuma's flashback at God Valley that he has a history with Garcia in particular. So maybe Garcia just has a hate bona for Kuma so much that it's allowing him to be like, yo, screw Kuma, we're just going to come and we're going to give King Bakori all the resources he needs to get rid of Kuma. I don't know. That might be it. But we see that Kuma gets, I guess, trashed in the media, right? We get to see that there's a smear job, and everything that King Bakori actually did is being labeled onto Kuma. So we get to see that Kuma allegedly burned villages when we know that he was one that was saving the burning villages and that he took the throne by force, whereas we know that King Bakori is trying to take the throne by force, and the people, I guess technically, Kuma took the throne by force, but he was being forced upon, right? The people forced Kuma to take the throne. So I thought that was interesting. And then we also get some comedy bits, right? So just throwing that heavy stuff in, and in the middle, he's mixing it in with the comedy. And we get to see Bonnie, the fact that Bonnie ate the age fruit. And we get to see that Connie, King Bulldog, the former king of the Sorbet Kingdom, and his mother, Connie, looks exactly like Bonnie. And so we have that funny interaction of Connie being mistaken for Bonnie. Her facial expression it's just absolutely hilarious. It reminds me of like a Family Guy skit when Family Guy was funny. But we get to see that Bonnie eats the age fruit. And I'm going to take a little bit of a tangent here and just say that this shit's weird. You know, why is it weird? Because we know that Bonnie right now is not even 10. I think she's like 7 or 8. But she has a body of a 22-year-old at this point, I think. So it's like, the problem with follow me. The problem with the Friends of the Playground is not so much their physical attraction to children. Like, children should not be physically attractive to you if you're a 22-year-old and it's a 10-year-old. I totally get that. That is not as egregious as it being like, the problem is that you're mentally degrading and hurting someone and scarring them for the rest of their life. So Bonnie's physically 22, but she's mentally 10, and that were like 8, and that's weird, dog. I gotta be honest with you. I'm probably just gonna leave it at that. It's weird. It's fucking weird. Yeah. Moving on. Moving right along. What we do get to see, though, is that King Bokori has come back. And I mentioned earlier in a previous review that it looks like there's a couple of allegories that One Piece is working on, or references. And I like when Oda takes bits and pieces of different things that have already happened in the story and puts a new spin on them. So we're seeing the spin of Germ Kingdom, for instance, where the king is pushed out by a extremely powerful individual and then comes back, right? How did we see that in Germ Kingdom? Well, remember the reason why Wapol left in the first place was because Blackbeard showed up and he became absolutely terrified of Blackbeard, and I guess rightfully so, right? So we're seeing that allegory where a pirate, I don't think Kuma's a pirate at this time, but a pirate shows up, gets rid of the former king, and the people have peace for a relative amount of time, and then the old king comes back. So we saw that in Germ Kingdom, a little bit different spin with the Blackbeard. Blackbeard's not a good guy, Kuma is. And so we're seeing that spin with Kuma now, where Kuma is there to defend the people when King Bokori comes back. And King Bokori is not coming back by himself. Obviously, he's coming back with the support of the Marines. And even with that shift in the newspaper, that's more of a reference to, what would you say, King Riku Dole III in Dressrosa, right? Where Doflamingo manipulates the people, and the sins of Doflamingo is actually pinned on King Riku Dole. And we also see the manipulation of the newspaper itself, which is something that we also saw in Dressrosa by Doflamingo, a former celestial dragon as well. So Oda's taking bits and pieces of the story that we've already seen, not necessarily chronologically for us, but not chronologically written in the story itself. But it is good, and I think very, very interesting for us to get to see those different spins of the same story and how they affect the other people that are playing in them, right? So I think, again, classic Oda style. We've seen this tons of times where Oda will make a reference from Paradise and bring it into the New World and vice versa. So yes, obviously Kuma annihilates the entire fleet, and here's what I will say. Kuma's a legend. I don't know any other way to put it. That being said, what is also very, very interesting, and I didn't realize this until reading chapter right now. So here's one thing I will say. Kuma is Dad of the Year. Not even close. He obviously cares about Bonnie. He obviously wants her well-being to be put first. And we see him traveling around. We also get to see Abdullah and Jeet as bounty hunters, which were, if you don't remember, two brothers in Dressrosa. They challenged Luffy for the Marimaro no Mi and are actually now a part of the Grand Fleet. So good callback to Oda. Here's the other thing, though, that we do get to see. We get to see the islands that the Straw Hats were sent to. So it looks like Kuma has actually been to all of these places. We see Vegapunk's original island that got frozen over that Frankie went to. We get to see I forget the name of the island that Kuma sent Zoro to that Mihawk was on. Kuraigana Island. Yes, there we go. We also get to see Tequila Wolf, Witheria, and probably the place that Usopp went to, So we get to see Heracles again. It's really, really good because I didn't recognize. I was like, oh, Witheria, great. Moving on. We get to see Tequila Wolf that Robin was sent to. So we know that Kuma's been to all these places. So is it, now that I'm thinking about it, we've probably also gotten to learn about how Kuma's devil fruit works. It probably means that in order for Kuma to send himself or someone somewhere, he's probably has to at least either A, know where it is, or B, have been there before. Maybe. Be an interesting limitation to his devil fruit, because otherwise he might have, he probably just has a warp fruit that the sniper on Blackbeard's crew, Van Augur, has. Although that might also be a limitation that Van Augur has. I have no idea. We also get to see Kuma interacting with Dragon again. And I'm just going to keep it a buck with you, man. Dragon's a real nigga. I know that people were upset because he didn't go up to Marie Joie and go and free Jenny like that was a reasonable request. First of all, Kuma never asked him to do it because I think Kuma himself would know that that's not reasonable, right? Like, Dragon's trying to form an army. They're very, very weak. This is right after Fisher Tiger goes up and frees a bunch of slaves, bearing in mind that he had to climb all of the Red Line to even get there. One man can't move an army up there. So that's kind of ridiculous. Like, the idea that it would be anywhere near reasonable for Dragon to go up and free Ginny is insane. So I'm gonna ignore that. But what Dragon does help Kuma do is find a doctor for Bonnie in the way of Dr. Vegapunk. And I think that that's him doing about as much as he could. And props to Dragon for that. Props to Dragon for being a real friend. And even understanding that Kuma can't rejoin the Revolutionary Army as much as he would like to. So props to Kuma. And props to Dragon for being good friends. Cut to the final panels or pages of the chapter. And I think obviously the interaction between Dr. Vegapunk and Kuma are particularly interesting. One, I just realized Dr. Vegapunk's head is supposed to be a light bulb. That really just clicked for me just now, so bear with me. Here's the actual interesting part, though. Dr. Vegapunk suffers from what I would call the genius syndrome. It's a particular trope in writing that the writer will almost inevitably fall into when writing a character that's supposed to be a genius. Why? Because they two things will happen. They'll either be comically smart to where it's like Aizen, where it's like, I only lost because I wanted to subliminally, and I planned everything out, and it turns into like Kaguya and Black Zetsu from Naruto or Aizen. See that in one hand, or if they make a mistake, it's like, why the hell are they making that mistake? I could have came up with why that wouldn't have worked, right? And Vegapunk is falling for the latter, because we see at the end of the chapter that Vegapunk and Kuma are saying, we can create these robot armies out of your body, your buccaneer body, Kuma, to essentially keep the peace and to save people and to get rid of evil pirates and what have you. Here's why that makes absolutely no sense. Because Kuma's a part of was a part of the Revolutionary Army. He knows that the Navy is run by Celestial Dragons, and he knows that the Celestial Dragons are evil people. His dad got shot for being happy, and his mother got murdered for being married to his dad. So, and he got enslaved, right? That was a whole part of the God Valley incident of him getting the poplar fruit and running away. So he knows firsthand that the people that are running the thing that he's about to contribute to are evil. I'll give Kuma a bit of a pass. Why? Because earlier in the chapter, he says that if it meant saving Bonnie, he would make a deal with the devil. I get it. He's standing on business. honestly, I don't really think he gives that much of a shit. He's probably like, yeah, I would like for it to be pacifist, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I'll do whatever it takes to get Bonnie. You could look at it through that lens, and that would be okay. Dr. Vegapunk has no alibi, because Oda's saying they only wanted peace. That's like his side note at the end of the chapter. By the way, no break next week, so we should be back to regular schedule. Here's why that makes no sense. Because Vegapunk also knows that the people, that the celestial dragons are inherently evil. I don't think he knows they're demons, quite literally, but he knows they're not good people. And so for him to do this is either naive at best, because you shouldn't attribute malice before you attribute stupidity. But then why is he stupid? Because he's supposed to be the greatest genius of all time and what have you. So I think that's the problem that Dr. Vegapunk is running into, and how the problem that Oda will run into when writing Dr. Vegapunk is, why is he making these mistakes? In my mind, very obvious mistakes that a genius shouldn't make. You couldn't see a world where you give the Gurusei a clone army of some of the most durable people in your entire history, in your entire planet, and not seeing them manipulate that in an evil way. I mean, Stevie Wonder can do that. That's kind of my take on it. So I think Oda's going to run into that problem consistently as he writes Dr. Vegapunk. It would honestly be more interesting to see the side of Oda write Dr. Vegapunk in the way that we saw at the beginning of Egghead, which was science takes precedent, in the sense that I'm willing to do whatever it takes in the pursuit of science. If it means creating an army that's going to kill a couple people, I don't care. And I would love to see that version of Vegapunk, because it creates kind of a moral conundrum, which is like, okay, that's his number one goal. Well, let's see how that can be twisted and turned, and let's see how he can grow and learn from that, as opposed to they're only ever going to use it for peace. That just seems naive. So I'm interested to see where Oda goes with that. But even with that included, it's still an excellent chapter. Like I said, we have no break next week. I expect we probably have 3 or so more chapters of the backstory. Next chapter is 1100. Something crazy is going to happen. I still have that video to release about the Gurusei and the Celestial Dragons, and what I believe their powers are, what I definitely know their rankings are now, and how Luffy and Imu will interact with the rest of the story. So stay tuned for that. That's probably going to come out next week. I'm going to start recording that in maybe about 10 minutes. So, yeah, but I think that's all the time we have. So until next time, guys, I'm your host, Dan Stone, reminding you to keep your claws sharp and stay in the hunt. Until next time, see ya.